Good afternoon. I welcome you all to First Parish Church this afternoon. All of the lovers of this wonderful antiquity, the town clock. Mr. McClellan in his history reports that around 1867, just shortly after the conclusion of the Civil War, there was agitation in town, is the way he put it, for the purchase of a clock. It's good to know that there was agitation in Gorham because it just shows that Gorham has not changed very much from that time to this. And it's also good to know that the history of this clock with First Parish and with the town of Gorham started with agitation. And that agitation has continued in some form all the way down to the present day. After quite a bit of agitation and the town of Gorham deciding that it did not want to expend public funds for a clock, and that tradition has stayed with us to today as well, Topham Roby, who had purchased the bell on behalf of the First Parish Church for, by the way, $500, volunteered to donate a clock to the town of Gorham. And Topham Roby took the trip down to Boston yet again, contracted with the E. Howard Tower Clock Company, who had been making tower clocks since the 1850s. Although I think under that name they had only existed since 1858, and purchased this tower clock for the sum of $550. However, he donated the clock with the understanding that the community and the church, through subscriptions, in other words, private donations, would pay the money to actually raise the top of the steeple off and build a whole nother level of the tower of this church to accommodate the clock. Now just think about that for a while. Today, steeples are raised rather routinely for repairs because we've got major cranes that can do that work. I can't even begin to think of how that was done in 1868. Quite an extraordinary piece of work. The bill for that was $500. So the bell costs $500, the clock costs around $500, and the raising of the steeple costs $500. It seems to be the standard price in those days. But that work was completed over a 2-month period of time. The faces of the clock were affixed and painted on the church building, and in the spring of 1868, the E. Howard clock people came and installed that clock, where it kept time for the next 140 years. There were 2 restorations of the clock, from what I can gather, that were done during that 140 years, the last of which was done sometime in the 1930s, that bring us down to the present. But that clock kept very good time right up until my first years in Gorham. You could still set your watch by that tower clock, which is really quite extraordinary. However, the clock stopped keeping time about 2 years ago, and a number of people from the town and myself contacted the Bowser Family Clockworks to take a look at what it would take to repair the clock, and they advised us that we would be better off actually restoring the clock. And they first had the idea, which they shared with Councillor Lovett and myself at the very beginning of this process, that maybe we didn't want to keep this historic treasure locked up at the top of the tower where only a handful of people would ever see it.
So I got to thinking about this project and how this clock and the Bell for that matter, arrived in Gorham through Friends. So the theme would be Friends. Friends, a big donation through Friends, bought the clock initially. Friends have looked after it over a period of time. There has been a legitimate separation between church and state. However, all Friends. Reverend Butler mentioned agitation, and yes, that's part and parcel, it seems, in our society. But isn't that wonderful that we can agitate and we can exasperate at times, I suppose, some say. But yet, when it comes right down to it, we can change governmental philosophies from time to time. We can change town philosophies, which some wish would hurry up, I suspect. And then we can also gather together and focus on a project as friends that benefit all parties. And Robert Frost speaks about people working separately but together. And then he finishes by saying, to paraphrase, that he guesses we do all work together, just separately. And so today I would like to celebrate the fact that we as friends, each some giving in a monetary fashion who have been mentioned and we're mighty grateful to, some giving their time and effort, other bodies, both the church body and the town body, working through inherent differences to create a product or to restore and keep a product born of Friends, maintained of Friends, and now established through Friends. So I would like to say I'm personally very grateful to all parties concerned. It's been a delight and it's been an honor to have been involved.